Hi, boys and girls. We are going to read this book together called Too Much Glue. And then after that, I have a special project for you to do. So we're going to read this book together. Can anyone tell me before we start, what is this right here? What is this called? Too Much Glue. If you said the title, you were correct. It's the name of the book, Too Much Glue. And then the author is Jason Lefebvre. Sorry. That's a little bit of a hard last name to say. I might have butchered it. But the author, who can remember, what does the author do? And if you said writes the words, you are correct. And then the illustrator is Zach Retz. What does the illustrator do? So the author writes the words. What does the illustrator do? And if you said makes the pictures, you are correct. The illustrator makes the pictures. So we're going to read this book, Too Much Glue. And then at the end, we'll talk about why I read this book because we have a special project to do. Too Much Glue. Our art teacher says, too much glue never dries. She reminds us, glue raindrops, not puddles. And she warns me, Maddie, too much glue. But my dad and I love glue. At home, we make glue glasses, glue mustaches, and even gluey bouncy balls. Mom is happy to help. That is a lot of glue. So during art class, I find the fullest bottles of glue. I tip them over and squeeze. Ploop. Glue squishes from the orange tips and slops all over. Sequins and googly eyes float around in a gluey lake. Then it's time for the most important decoration. Yikes. Geronimo! Pew! I belly flop onto the table and roll around, letting the glue and everything else cover me. Oh my goodness. That doesn't happen in kindergarten, boys and girls. Time to go on the drying rack, I announce. But when I try to pull myself off the table, I boing right back down. Too much glue, Maddie. Too much glue, my teacher squawks. This is bad. There's only half an hour until the end of school, and all I can do is lift my head, wave my hands, and wiggle my feet. The rest of me is a blue, blucky, stucky mess. Can somebody help me? I call. While my teacher breathes into a paper bag, Noah shouts, "Let's lasso him!" Izzy, Noah, and Owen get to work. Soon, I'm roped from all sides like a rodeo pony, but when they try to pull me out, snap! The lasso breaks, leaving colorful octopus tentacles everywhere. The glue is too strong, and I'm clingy, stingy, blucky, stucky mess. Don't worry, Maddie. We know what to do, shout Luke and Grace from across the room. Is that a tow truck? I ask. They wheel the contraption over and stick a plastic hook into my suit of glue. My friends pull one way and the glue pulls the other. Creak, click, creak, click, until... Kaboom! The tow truck explodes and plastic bricks rain all over. Now I'm a clicky, bricky, clingy, stingy, blucky, stucky mess. That's way too much glue. The school nurse bursts in and checks my temperature. 98.6. Sorry, no fever. I can't send you home early. She dabs and pats me like I'm spilled juice. But the more she blots, the more the glue spreads. Soon, I'm a melted mummy, clicky, bricky, clingy, stingy, blucky, stucky mess. Then the principal comes in. He takes one look at me, sticks a note on my belly, and leaves. Seeing my teacher huffing and puffing like a train gives me a great idea. I whisper it to Haley and Owen. The final bell rings and everyone freezes, except Owen and Haley. It's the biggest one we could make, they shout, furiously flapping a huge paper fan at me. Then, just as I'm thinking I'll be a note on my tummy, melted mummy, clicky bricky, clingy stingy, blucky stucky, gluey boy for the rest of my life, my plan works. Something my teacher said could never happen happens. The glue dries. But I'm still stuck. And now I hear footsteps. The door starts to open. My father and some other carpool parents walk in. Dad comes closer and inspects me. Then he peels me off the table, glue, yarn, bricks, and all. He spins me around. No one makes a sound. Then Dad smiles. Maddie, you are a masterpiece. He holds me up for everyone to admire. My friends all cheer. The car ride home is interesting. They have a convertible in the tops down, and look at everything starting to fly off. Mom is speechless when Dad brings me in the house, but he knows just what to do. Well, kiddo, Dad says, some beautiful things only happen once, and this is one of those things. He gently grips the dried glue in front of my neck and behind my collar and peels me open like a ripe banana. Now it's Dad's turn to glue, and he seals up the sides of the me-shaped work of art. I bet it would take all the glue in the art room to make a U-shaped work of art, Dad, I say. Dad laughs. Then he glues a big magnet to the back of my project and hangs it on the fridge. During dinner, we sneak peeks at my masterpiece. And after dinner, we take the principal's note very seriously. And the note says, from the desk of Elmer G. Stuckey, please encourage Maddie to use tape instead of glue. That's a silly little book, but there was a reason I read that book, because we're going to do a project with some glue. We're going to use our very own sticky, icky, blucky, yucky glue. And I read that book to remind us that we don't need a whole lot of glue when we're doing projects. Just a tiny little bit. And actually, what we kindergarten teachers like to say, there's a little rhyme, ... not a lot. So you don't have to squeeze it out like Maddie did in the book. You can just use a tiny little dot, and that's enough. ... not a lot. So I'll show you. So first, what we're going to do, you are going to get out your binder, your learning binder. And in the back, if you turn to the back, sorry, I have to turn through some of my stuff here, you're going to find this picture of corn. So there's a baggie with tissue paper squares in it. Then there's the picture of the corn. And then there's this orange piece of paper. So you're going to get those supplies out. You're going to need a glue bottle. Get situated here. You're going to need a glue bottle. You're going to need the orange paper, the corn, and the tissue paper squares. So how many things do we need to get out? Say it if you know it. If you said 4 things, you are correct. Your glue bottle, the tissue paper squares, the corn paper, and the orange piece of paper. Okay? And remember, this is a video, so you can stop it at any time if I'm going too fast. And this is just a fun little project for you to do. So if you need to stop it or you think you know what to do after a little bit, you can turn the video off. If you need to pause and come back to it, you can. So those of you that haven't worked with glue before, you're going to take the orange top and you're going to spin the orange top open. So I'm not going to hold on to the white bottom. I'm going to take the orange top and I take my pointer finger and my thumb, put it on here, and then I just turn it. And I'm turning it to the right. So I'm going to turn it this way. All right. There's a little bit of glue on the top of my orange top, so I'm going to kind of peel that off. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. So remember in our book, Too Much Glue, Maddie just squeezed it out and the glue went and made a plop all over. That's too much. We don't want that. So you can, after you've opened it, turn it upside down, give it a couple little shakes. You don't need to squeeze it while you're shaking, just a couple little shakes. And then I'm going to show you, I'm not squeezing with all my might. Might even be hard to see because there's not much there. I did my dot, dot, not a lot. I barely touched it, and I'm just going to put a little bit on my paper. Now, you don't have to do anything right now. I'm just showing you what we want to see for this project. You don't want too much glue. You don't want to be like Maddie. So just a tiny little dot. If you go and squeeze and squeeze and squeeze and squeeze and squeeze, you get a ton of glue. This, we don't want to see this. That's too much. Then your paper won't dry, and it might even rip if you get too much glue on. So just dot, dot, not a lot. Tiny little dots. All right. So we are going to do, in honor of Thanksgiving, this is a little corn project. So we're going to make it look like calico corn. And the reason it's called calico corn is because it's multiple different colors. So maybe in the fall, maybe in your home, maybe someone uses it as decoration, or maybe you see it in the fall in the grocery store. This corn is different colors. So it's not like the yellow corn where it's all yellow that we know, and we kind of call it sweet corn and farmers grow it and we eat that in the summer. This is different corn. Native Americans planted, we call it calico corn now, they planted this. They were the first people to live in North America. So even before anyone came over and discovered America, Native Americans were here. This was their land. And they lived off the land. So they would plant crops, they would eat animals, hunt animals, things like that. This was one of the things they would plant, and we call it calico corn. So they could eat it, but it's a little bit harder, and it doesn't taste as good as like the yellow sweet corn that we know. So they would use this, they would let it dry out, and they would smash it down, and then they used it for flour to bake things. Sometimes you might see in stores now like blue corn chips. So it would come from corn like this. So we are going to make our very own calico corn today. And I did forget one thing. You're also going to need a green marker. So I have to look through my markers, and I'm going to try to find a green marker here. So what you're going to do is you are going to first color this green. Okay? So I'm doing my best. I'm kind of tracing the inside of this here. And I'm going to use my green marker. I'm going to trace the whole inside. And then I'm going to go back in and color it. Okay? So when I color, I like to take my time. I want it to look really good. So I just go one way up and down. So I started going up and down. Since I did that, I'm going to keep going that way. I don't want to start going sideways now. I just want to go up and down until I fill this in. And when I get down towards the bottom or the sides, I might slow down my coloring a little bit so that I stay inside those black lines. And then when I'm done with that side, I'm just going to go over to the other side and do the same thing over here. So you can go ahead and start doing this part if you'd like while I'm talking. Get your green marker out and you can start coloring. This is what we call the corn husk, the husk of the corn. So kind of the outside part of the corn. This is the protector of the corn. You've probably seen this if you've driven by farms or you've seen cornfields or anything like that. So this is the part on the outside of the corn. It's called the husk, and it protects the corn and keeps it nice and healthy. Okay, so I'm just going back and coloring in some white spots that I see when I'm all done. All right, now I'm going to make sure that I put the cap tightly on my marker. And now here's what I'm going to do with my glue and my pieces of tissue paper squares. So calico corn, remember we talked about it's colorful corn, multiple different colors. So what you're going to do is, I'm going to get some of these off the side here. You're just going to pick wherever you want to start. I'm going to start at the top, and I put my tiny, tiny dot, not a lot. And I'm going to pick a color. It doesn't matter what color I pick. And I can kind of put it on my finger like this, and then I can kind of squeeze it together. And then I'm going to push it down and keep it in that rectangle. And then I'm going to go to the next one, put a tiny amount of glue on, and then I'm going to pick a different color, because remember our calico corn, we want it to be different colors. So I don't want to lay my pieces flat like this. I want it to be sticking up, kind of like a 3D effect. So it's sticking up, looking at you. So I'm just going to keep going in all of my rectangles. I'm just going to keep picking different colors. You can pick whatever colors you want, boys and girls. This is your craft, so you make it look how you want it. Make it kind of represent you. I like a lot of different colors, but that's okay if you don't. Maybe you want only 3 colors and you want all the same colors on there. That's okay too. But I'm trying to make it, I like it pretty, I like lots of colors, and the calico corn, remember, is lots of multiple different colors, which means lots of different colors. So you do this however you like. All right, so remember you can stick your finger on it. You can squish it up. If that's kind of hard, if you have like a pen or a pencil, then I'll show you how you can do it with that. So get your little dot of glue. Remember, we don't want too much glue, not like Maddie. We don't want to end up stuck to our paper or corn. So if it's too hard for your finger, you can put it on the tip of a pencil or something and then stick it down that way. So whatever's easiest for you, okay? And you're going to continue putting pieces here and there, filling this piece of corn in. And remember, you can take breaks if you get a little, if your hands start to get tired, or maybe your attention is on something else for a little bit. You can always take a break and you can always come back to this too. So your goal is to fill up the whole piece of corn, all right? With these, you want to fill up the whole piece of corn with these little pieces of tissue paper. And then when you're all done, then you get to cut it out and you're going to glue it on here. So I'm going to kind of fast forward and pretend that I finished here because I think you get the idea. And then I'm going to cut out my piece of corn. So I'm just going to follow along the black lines. Oops, I should show you. I'm just going to follow along the black lines. Here's where it gets a little tricky. Once you get to here, this first part of the husk, don't keep cutting. If you keep cutting and following the black line all the way down here, you are going to end up cutting your pieces of husk off, and it's not going to be one piece. We want this to all be one piece. So follow the black line until you get to the husk here, and then you can turn your paper around and then go back up and follow the black line. Okay, so that's the tricky part right there. You want to make sure that you don't cut through on this line, because if you cut through on that line, you're going to cut your whole corn paper into bits, and we don't want that. We want it all one piece. So you can follow the black line on the outside here when you're all done. So I suggest coloring the husk first, like we did, then filling in the middle part of the corn, and then once it's all done and you've filled in the whole corn, then go and cut this out. Okay, so this is like the second to the last piece that you can do. And make sure you put your paper in recycling at your home. If you have recycling, put it in the recycling. So on this side, this is the other second tricky part. When I get here, when I touch the corn, I'm not going to go any further. I'm going to turn my paper around and go back up. Okay, so when you're all done, this should all be one piece. All right, and if you cut a little bit of the tissue paper off when you're cutting, that's okay too. So now that I'm done, I want to glue this on my orange piece of paper. That's what this orange piece of paper is for. I'm going to give myself a little bit more room here. So when you're gluing this down, you want to make sure that you flip your corn over and put glue on the back of the corn. If you put just glue anywhere on your paper, it might not match, and then there might be glue on this side and here, and we don't want that because then it's going to stick to other things. So you want to glue on your corn. So you're going to flip it over to the back, okay? And this is where you want to definitely do dot, dot, not a lot. And you don't want to be like Maddie. You can put some glue dots down, or you can put a little bit of glue back and forth on here, okay? But you want to make sure you kind of get glue all over. And then you're going to flip it over and try to glue it in the middle of your paper. Okay, and there you go. When you're all done, pretend mine is done. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I think you get the idea. When you're all done, this is all going to be filled in, and then you'll have these colored in the husks, and then you'll put it on here, and it's going to look amazing because you did it, and you did an awesome job. So if you want to, if you decide to do this project, when you're all done, you can take a picture of it and post it on Seesaw, and then we can see all of your amazing work. So bye, boys and girls. Good luck, and I hope you have fun doing your Calico corn projects.